Слово предоставляется доктору Милде Якулите-Василь с докладом «Свобода помнить. Память о Холокосте в Литве с 1990 года». Прошу. 20 минут.
I've divided my presentation into two parts. First, I'll talk about monuments of mass murder sites and touch upon various aspects of these. And the second part of my talk about the Holocaust commemoration. And I will try to provide an overview of the main events in Lithuania since 1990, when the country became independent. Monuments to Holocaust victims in Lithuania began to be built immediately after the end of the Second World War. Initially, survivors who had returned to their hometowns and villages tried to set the teeth up, but they very soon came up against the Soviet government's opposition to inscriptions on monuments of a religious nature. From about 1948, when the Soviet government's anti-Semitic activities increased, the erection of monuments was controlled by the government. From the 1950s onwards, the initiative for setting up monuments was completely out of the survivors' hands. Although not all of the dates of erection are known, a total of 152 such monuments were set up in Soviet Lithuania between 1944 and 1989. The national rebirth of Lithuania underway in late 1988. The Lithuanian Jewish community began taking care of mass murder sites in commemoration of Lithuanian Jewish Holocaust victims. That year saw much activity in the repair and maintenance of monuments, and over the course of the year, with the help of local municipalities, heritage institutions, and local Jewish communities, around 130 mass murder sites were put in order, meaning new monuments and commemorative stones were put into place, and commemorative plaques were replaced with inscriptions in Hebrew or Yiddish in parallel with Lithuanian inscriptions. On 7th November 1990, the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet Republic of Lithuania adopted a resolution called On the Maintenance and Heritage Marking of Cemeteries and Graves of Jewish Victims of Genocide. Following the adoption of this resolution, a boom began in the erection of new monuments and the replacement of old monuments with new ones. According to the information available, in 1991 alone, 17 monuments were set up at locations which had none before. Following independence, one of the main initiators and organizers for maintaining these sites was Josifas Ledinsonas, whose Book of Sorrow, published in 1997, featured photographs of monuments collected from around 190 locations which had been identified at the time. Lithuania declared 2011 the year of remembrance of Holocaust victims. Over the course of that year, upkeep of monuments and establishing new monument sites increased slightly. For instance, memorials with the names of the dead were set up next to existing monuments at Jewish mass murder sites in the city of Kėdainiai and at Kaušėnai, where the Jews of Plungė were exterminated. Memorial plaques were replaced by both by municipalities and by local residents, and new initiatives appeared to set up monuments where there hadn't been any before. Like in Kaunas, at least 2 places. The work renewing and adding to the monuments and association activities has been going on in the present. In 2015, the mass murder site in Šeduva was refurbished and new memorials were added. In 2016, new monuments at the killing site appeared in Molėtai. And 2019, the names of the dead were added to the memorial in Piotr. In discussing the history of the construction of monuments in Lithuania, it's important to bear in mind that a little over half of all monuments were constructed during the Soviet era, when questions of ethnicity were suppressed and phrases such as graves of Soviet citizens and fraternal victims of fascism. And after the restoration of Lithuanian independence, that which had been built during the Soviet era was either accepted out of inertia or rejected completely. Several interesting aspects of the inventarization of heritage became clear in the information collected on Jewish mass murder sites and the monuments constructed there. In the graphic, you can see how mass murder sites have been categorized. 1/4 of the sites have been entered on the Cultural Heritage Register at all, which means they do not enjoy legal protection. Another 1/4 had been entered on the register, but only as cemeteries. And 1 more 1/4 are called Jewish mass murder sites and grave sites, or something similar with various variations on that combination of words. The remaining 1/4 are called site of mass murder of the Jews of such and such location, and the majority of these are in exactly that format. Only 2 sites are entered on the register with the word genocide in their titles. All 3 of Kaunas Tsarist era military forts where Jews were murdered in their 4th, 7th, and 9th forts are registered only as 19th century defensive fortifications. To go back to the topic of inscriptions, it's important to look at exactly what epithets are inscribed on Holocaust monuments. Epitaphs are an important element of memorials intended to help the public understand the historical event. After the change in political regimes and after Lithuanian independence, inscriptions had to be changed because the Soviet epitaphs failed to mention the victims of fascism were actually Jews. Basically, the absolute majority of monuments and mass murder sites employ standard inscriptions formulated in the Soviet period. After Lithuanian independence, these inscriptions underwent minor corrections with several phrases removed. The Strošiūnai forest site in the Kaišiadorys region provides an illustration. A commemorative marker was erected at mass murder site in 1964. The inscription was in Lithuanian, and it reads, "Let's not forget the crimes of fascism. On 28th of August 1941, the fascist henchmen brutally tortured and buried alive here 2,200 Soviet citizen children, the elderly, and women of Jewish ethnicity who lived in Žasliai, Žiežmariai, and Kaišiadorys." This was replaced with a new commemorative flag in Lithuanian and Yiddish in 1992. The Nazi henchmen and their local collaborators brutally tortured and buried half alive about 2,200 Jewish men and women from Žasliai, Žiežmariai, and Kaišiadorys here on 28th of August 1941. A standard formula for evidence was used throughout Lithuania. One detects a slight development over time, but no sudden or drastic changes in the use of the formula have been found. After visiting almost every site and reading all the inscriptions and monuments, the only possible conclusion is that the fascist henchmen and bourgeois nationalists were replaced with Hitlerians and Hitlerite murderers and their local lackeys, and these later evolved into current formula, Nazi henchmen and their local helpers. Beside the issue of the evolution of inscriptions, there is also the problem that there were inscriptions with incorrect information. This usually concerns the number of victims, although there are cases where the dates are wrong as well. An example of this comes from village of Rene in the Tertiary region, where a temporary camp for collecting Jews was set up in July 1941. The Jewish men held here were shot on 15 and 16 of July, and the number of victims is calculated between 800 and 1,500. The words inscribed on the monument, however, say the blood of 7,000 Jewish men, women and children was spilled here. This means that the number of victims has been increased around 6 times. The Day of Remembrance of Lithuanian Jewish Victims of Genocide, which falls on 23rd of September, is connected to the liquidation of Vильnюse ghetto, was listed on the official list of state holidays by order of the Presidium of Supreme Soviet of Lithuania in 1990. Since 1994, it has been marked annually. And since 2009, the International Remembrance Day has also been observed in Lithuania. There are observances of Yom HaShoah, the Israeli Day of Holocaust commemoration, during which a March of the Living event takes place at Ponar near Vilnius, the largest mass murder site in Lithuania. Besides these dates, every Lithuanian town has its own day to commemorate the date of town's Jewish community was murdered, and sometimes there are multiple days for the same town. The densest period of commemoration runs from the end of June to November, the period in 1941 during which over 80% of the Jews of Lithuania were murdered. This part of the year could conceivably feature a local town commemoration almost every day. Since about 2010, the public has taken a noticeably greater interest in the Holocaust, and various grassroots efforts have appeared to commemorate the victims. One of the larger stimuli towards public Holocaust commemoration happened in 2011, when that year was declared the Year of the Defense of Freedom and of Great Losses. Despite the declaration, this year wasn't an especially active time, and everything involved official commemorations in specific municipalities. But the first non-governmental civic Holocaust commemoration happened that year on 23rd of September at St. Catherine Church in Vilnius. This is not active church and is a concert hall now, where the names of Holocaust victims were read aloud from early morning into the evening. This was an initiative by city residents who wanted to remember Holocaust victims without the bureaucracy. Over several years, the initiative grew with people who read out names in Vilnius, bringing the event to their hometowns. In 2014, this Holocaust initiative was held in 9 locations, and in 2016 in 22 cities and towns. There were other ways of Holocaust commemorations took place as well. These were usually initiated by children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, some resident in Lithuania, some living abroad. The small community healthy commemorations in private, without publicity. The 75th anniversary of the beginning of the Holocaust was in Lithuania was marked in 2016. There were an unusually large number of commemoration events held. There were official ceremonies in Ponar and a conference in the Lithuanian parliament organized by Lithuanian Jewish community. Also, for the first time in Lithuania, German artist Gunter Demning's memory stones were unveiled in Vильnюse, Kaunas, Šiauliai, Panevėžys, in front of buildings where Jewish and Roma citizens once lived. New monuments were unveiled at several locations to remind the public of the local murdered Jewish community. Larger and smaller commemorations were held in many locations in different towns. At events that year in Molėtai, Biržai, Šeduva, Vilnius, Kaunas, and other locations, public interest and participation were important examples of how society at the grassroots level is not only capable of doing, but actually does do something about its concerns, and is able to talk about painful matters without following in the footsteps of political leaders. These examples show there is a group which has formed in society who see official Holocaust commemoration and projects initiated by the state institutions as not enough. For this group, which is daily growing, to judge from the events, it is important to do something just because they care. And the events and commemorations they initiate are much more public, open, effective, and most importantly, relevant. I would like to end my presentation with the words of Lithuanian Jewish publicist Sergei Konovich. Memory can't live if it's only rekindled when flags with black ribbons are raised and lowered and microphones are turned on. Memory, like national border, must be vigilantly and continually protected. It is living only if it's tended daily. Otherwise, like a fallow field, it becomes short with weeds. And like a poorly protected national borders, where oblivion, relieving us of any and all responsibility creeps across. Thank you.
Спасибо доктору Якулите-Василь за интересный доклад.